All right, so let's talk a little bit about some fun stuff in your background. You spent, I think it was 10 years at YMCA. Is that
12 years? I was on the board of Camp Belknap YMCA in New Hampshire. So I worked there for 11 years as a camper and counselor. My boys both went there, and my daughter went to their sister camp. And so when I was 12, my parents got divorced, which was tough. And I went to camp as my parents were moving from one place to the other. And the young men there kind of became that father figure that I needed. And it gave me a lot of confidence, and they gave me a lot of responsibility young to lead others. And they poured in a lot of leadership development in me at a time where I was, middle to lower middle class at best. And so, this last 4 years, we put together a capital campaign and raised $10 million for the camp. And it was pretty neat to do that. And the board of directors is about 40% of that.
So the camp is in New Hampshire.
Yep, it's been around since 1903 on Lake Winnipesaukee.
Wow.
So it's a boys' camp, and and we have sporting events against other camp. The camp motto is God first, the other fellow second, myself last. Pretty good motto.
I do. I like that. I like that it's, and I know going back to its roots, those were core things that were important to it at the time. Where do you see, and you may not have a whole lot of feedback on Scouts, but you've got YMCA and Scouts, where do you see they are today? Is that a motto that you think they would stand behind today?
That's a really good question and a tough question, Sean. I think it's getting complicated. We would have discussions on the board. Some people would say, I came to the camp because my mom trusted the Y brand. Other people say the Y brand sounds like they have issues with the C in the YMCA. I think it's a tough issue for people. And in New England, it's a lot more secular than in Texas. A lot less believers of all kinds of faith in New England. But I do think there's a rooting there. And I think at the summer camp, I think everyone agree of all different faiths that attend, and we have different faiths that attend, it's a spirituality first, that there's something bigger than us, and we focus on kind of the Native American tradition of God, which is kind of healthy, I think.
It can. Yeah. I think everyone has a theology.
Yeah.
I think all human beings do.
That's a good way to put it.
Right. I think all human beings have some type. In the moment you say, even an atheist that says that I don't believe in God, he has a theology. He has a view of his role and his relationship with a God that he doesn't believe in.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you have some type of theology, even those that, worship a different God than maybe the God that we may worship. Right. They all have some form of theology. I think starting with spirituality is a great place, because the moment you take yourself out of being the center of the universe is a good place to start.
Yeah,
right?
Especially for kids.
Because most everything is made things more easier, more comfortable, less stress. I watch my boy, he's 8, and he stresses over really small things. And I'm like, you gotta feel those things, right? You gotta experience those things. You don't learn from winning, you learn from losing. And they just get so defeated when they lose.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's our society a little bit too. I think the spirituality thing made sense too, because we were out in nature, and so many kids today are playing video games all the time. So they go to summer camp for 2 weeks away from their parents.
Have a cleanse.
Yeah. And now they're out in nature, running around in the woods, and they're kind of a little bit more conscious, like, how did all this stuff get here?
Oh.
It's good.
So that's what trees smell like.
Exactly. That sap thing, it's hard to get out of your jeans.
It is. We just cut a jackfruit. You ever had a jackfruit?
I've heard of that.
It's like the size of a watermelon, full of spikes all over it.
It's
little bitty spikes.
Yeah.
And the sap is so rich and thick that she cut through with a knife, and I still cannot get the sap off the knife.
Oh, wow.
Like, I guess that's one of the downsides. Like, maybe people don't buy it because the sap is so
just
tough.
Jacked up your knife. Maybe that's what it
jacked up my knife. So you went to college, and you talked about you got another studying languages.
Yeah.
And did you start languages in high school and moved on?
I studied Latin and Spanish. I did Spanish for 5 years and Latin for 2 years.
And that's enough that you went going to college that you're able to speak it even today.
Yeah, I speak it.
That's unusual, though. A lot of people take all these classes and all these years.
Well, then I was an exchange student. That's important.
That makes a big difference.
So I lived in Puerto Rico for a year, and that's what really kind of sealed it. And then later in life, I lived in Costa Rica for a year.
So you said you also speak Portuguese.
I do.
That's a similar but different language.
Yeah, it sounds a lot different. Written, it looks similar. When I was a Spanish major, they made you take a year of Portuguese. And eventually, Paychex tapped me on the shoulder to help us try to launch in Brazil. So I went down to Brazil a few times and got to practice Portuguese. So eu falo português também. So, not as well, not as fluently, but it was kind of cool to be able to use something you learned a long time ago.
Well, how about that? I'm sure there's big pay bonuses for all those skills, I'm sure.
Just
maybe
in the
some
long
credibility.
Run. I got to go down to see a World Cup game too.
The Sea World Cup game.
To see the USA play Germany in the World Cup.
Oh, amazing!
In 2014.
At that time, you went down. Oh,
that
would be amazing.
That was fun.
Definitely in sports. So hobbies. We'll talk a little bit about hobbies. You talked about playing golf.
Yeah.
And you were not playing in Augusta last weekend, but you do play golf. Your oldest said he plays golf.
He plays a little golf, yeah. So my kids have been 2 of the 3 are very athletic. So my daughter, she's a senior at CU Boulder, Rachel, and she's on the water polo team there. And they got conference championships at the end of April, and then maybe going to nationals in LA and after that. But no, I was a soccer guy growing up. I loved basketball, so my kids were basketball players. I had 2 playing high school basketball at Carroll Senior High and on the varsity at the same time, which is unusual to have that.
Yeah,
so that was pretty cool. My youngest one, more a gamer, video gamer.
So you have a daughter that went to CU Boulder,
yes,
which I'm sure is a very liberal school.
Very, very big time.
So how does it work when you're at a liberal school?
Yeah.
And you're on the female water polo team, and you're playing against another team that has a male on the team? Has she had that experience yet?
I don't think she's had that.
She probably will at some point.
She might. She's graduating May 11th. But yeah, I think that would be interesting because male guy water polo versus female water polo looks a lot different. I mean, those guys throw really hard.
With males and females all look a lot different.
Yeah, they do. So I don't think part of her would like it because she had 2 brothers and she doesn't get intimidated easily by people. So
probably not by that, but she can't overcome that.
But she wouldn't want to continually lose if that was the situation. So she's competitive too.
Because I was watching the lady from Kentucky that lost the national championship in swimming.
Yes.
So she went
University of Penn lady?
Well, yeah, and she went to San Francisco. No, this lady was from University of Kentucky.
Okay.
That's where she was from.
Okay.
So I know I'm going to lose some of the stuff. And it was Leah Thomas, I think, was the
controversial
male
one. Yeah.
that decided,
I think she was University of Pennsylvania.
Did not want to compete with the males, so ended up competing against the women and
broke all records.
Cleared them.
Yeah,
and she killed her. But Riley is the girl's name. So Riley goes out to San Francisco College and right into the belly of the beast.
Yeah, a lot of competition there.
And they to speak, to say, hey, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
About what equality looks like, and maybe some areas that we don't want to have the same equality.
Yeah.
And it was a very difficult time for her.
I bet.
She got attacked every which way, beat up a little bit, and then locked in a room for hours with lots of threats, and they were asking her for money just to be able to leave, and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But she went straight in there. It reminded me of that story, when you're talking about your daughter doing water polo. I don't think that it would be in the good interest of female sports to allow males into it. I don't think that's a good way to.
No.
But NCAA has not really backed down from this. They've been pretty open to allowing males to compete in women's sports. It's been a real challenge.
They know it's going to be interesting soon. I think this is a part of the groundswell that's out there in terms of controversy with the schools and how parents look at things differently than other groups.
Yeah, and I think starting with a basis of conviction is always a good place to start.
Yeah.
And I think even if you strip everything down to just the lowest common denominator, which I like to do often in business or problems that I'm dealing with, if you don't have any type of real moral truth, then what's good for you today will not be good for you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And for those that are okay with men competing with women today are going to have a big problem with the next generation, with what they'll introduce, because it'll continue to slide.
Yeah, but I do think that person, Lydia, was that her name?
Riley is the one from Kentucky.
But
Leah Thomas.
Leah Thomas. Leah has the right to compete. Where she should compete and with whom, I think, is to be determined.
But why have rules and regulations if we're just going to kind of continue to bend them and allow anything and everything to take place?
Yeah. So I don't know how you do it logistically. She should compete, but
and they've had some of them, the trans, get into girls MMA. Imagine what that looks like. and it's pretty ugly. You thought it was
Yeah.
bad watching a swimmer lose
Oh
it?
yeah, I wouldn't like to say. I mean, my dad was always adamant. Don't hit a girl.
Well, it's
So,
beyond
break that rule.
Think about the strength directly in competition.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're throwing a ball at someone.
Yeah,
You're throwing punches.
yeah.
And she about the first contest, I mean, the transgender.
Has that actually happened?
Well, yes, the
Okay.
transgender woman nearly killed the
Yeah.
female MMA, just beat the heck out of
Yeah,
her.
I think that's.
So, I mean, there's so many places it doesn't make sense, but we still, as a culture, seem to think, well, we just want to let everything go. There's no conviction.
I think most of the parents have some good common sense in this, and the society has to listen to.